Okay, I've decided I have 2 Euro pillowcases. So these are Euros, they're square. And I'm going to make this one, and this one, not the front one. Now, all the stripe is my bedspread fabric. If you notice on the Euro sham, you can barely see it, but it does have piping. And I'll make my piping, but in order to make sure I have enough of all the, the fabrics, I'm going to cut these first. So how do we do that? All right, to start out for the Euro shams, I'm just going to show you here. These were the shams that were on the bed, and they're called an envelope sham. As you can see, it opens up like an envelope. So we cut 1 piece for the front solid, and then we cut 2 pieces for the back to make the envelope. So let's do some calculating. The first thing we have to do is measure our pillow, and they're all standard size. And we're going to measure from this seam all the way across to the other seam, and it's 26 inches. Both directions because it's a square. So for the Euro sham, and there are 2, the pillow measures 26 inches by 26 inches. We want to have a 1/2 inch seam all the way around. So we're going to cut 27 inches by 27 inches. That adds a 1/2 inch on the sides and a 1/2 inch on the other sides, on each side. Now that will be the blue fabric, because that's the front. For the back, okay, let's do some math here. Let's start with this. We know the one direction is going to be 27 inches by 27. We want 3 inches to turn back, and then we need another inch to fold under like a seam. So we've got 3 plus 3 plus 1 plus 1 is 8. So 27 plus 8 is 35. I'm going to say 36, and I'll just turn it back a little bit more so we don't, it'll just be easier. So we're going to cut 2 pieces, 27 by 36, and then we're going to cut those in half. So you could either cut 2 27 by 36 and cut them in half, or cut 2 27 by 18s. And this will be the white. It's not really white, but oh well. Okay, now cording. Just to make it easier. Excuse me, 26 times 4 is 104. If we divide that by 36 inches, 2.8888, whatever. Let's say 3 yards for each sham. So we're going to need a total of 6 yards. I'll just do it this way. Okay. If you cut cording this way, you see there's no stretch at all. No stretch this way. But when you turn it on what's called the bias, or the 45, you get stretch. So cording needs to be cut on the bias. I'll demonstrate with this piece of paper here. Let's say this is your fabric. In order to find your bias, think about folding a paper airplane. You're going to bring this piece down where it lines up at a 45, and then you're going to cut your fabric. Since I've already cut my pieces, I'm gonna go ahead and do it this way. So then you're going to cut your fabric like that. I'm going to flip that over so it's not so. Okay, so that would be your bias. Now for 1/4 inch cording, I cut my strips 2 inches. And I cut as many as I need so that I have my yardage. And I know I need 6 yards. And to sew this pillow, the first thing we're going to do is make the cording. So here's my strips. And just to show you, stretch. So we have a lot of nice stretch there. Now there is a little bit of a trick to sewing your pieces together in one continuous thing. So I'll show you what I do. Okay. So I line up like this, my ends. I flip it over. And this has got selvage on it, so I'll have to make sure I include that selvage in the seam. Sometimes I have to play around with it. I'll show you what I mean. I might have to move it up or down a little bit. Let's try right there. All right, so I'm going to pin. Oop. And pin, like this is my stitch. And I would stitch just where those pins are. Then when I open it out, you see? This way is much, much better than sewing a straight seam. When you sew a straight seam, you have a lot of bulk. But when you sew it like this, when you fold it in half, all the bulk is spread out more because you've got one seam right here with the seam and one seam on this side, instead of having a big fat thick seam in the middle where you're having to sew the two fabrics together. So that's how I combine mine. Then I'll sew this, and then I'll come back and show you, I'll sew all of these together, and then I'll come back and show you how I do the cording. Got my seam, and I pressed it open. So demonstrating here what we're going to do. We're going to put our cording in the middle, fold it over, and using a zipper foot, where the zipper foot rides right on this edge of this cording, we're going to keep it tight and stitch it. Now I don't pin it all the way. I like to do it at the machine, pulling and holding with my fingers. But I wanted to show you, we move further down. I do pin the first one just to get it started. But just to demonstrate here, cutting this at a slant instead of straight. Actually, I'm going to show you going this way so you can visually see. See how the side seams there, and they're not stacked? You'll never see it, so that when this is put in here, there it is. And you can barely see that there's even a seam there. But if it were straight up and down and we folded it, it would be bulky and noticeable. So that's why we do it this way. All right, we'll go to the sewing machine. Okay, my zipper foot is here. And there's a little screw on the back where I can move where the zipper foot will either be on the left or on the right in that little indentation. So here I've got my cording. I'm gonna go ahead and put one more pin. Bent. About to lose my thread here. Alright, put my needle in. I'm not starting at the edge because I need to back stitch 2 or 3 stitches and then move forward because that locks your stitch. So back first and then forward. Actually, I'll take that out. Okay, so what I do is I hold it in the middle and I pull this material real tightly and I grab like that. Make sure your needle is down in, then do it again. Put it in the middle. Fold the material. And then, once I get it going where I have enough of a tail, I control it with one hand behind and the other in front. I also kind of turn this a little bit to kind of dig that needle in as close to the cording as possible so that it's not loose. You see how tight that is? There's no extra material where the cording is rocking around in there. All right, all the cording is done. And I always like to pin my cording to my the front piece of a pillow or a sham. So it doesn't really matter which way I turn this. It's pretty much the same both directions, but I'm going to let this be the bottom. And you want to start. Trim that off. Well, no, I'm going to keep that on there for right now. You want to start in the middle. That's where I always start. Now, some people don't go to the trouble to pin this. They line it up and they do it on their machine. I prefer to pin it. It takes longer, but that way I'm assured that I've got a nice, neat finish. Using the 2-inch wide, by the time you add your cording inside, you're left with a 1/2 inch or a little more. I just do my best to, like here, see how it's a little shorter here and it's longer here. I just try to make sure I'm straight and adjust that way. Now when you get to the corner, I have shown this before, but if you were to just try to turn it, it wouldn't make a nice corner. It'd be all bulky. So what I do is very carefully, I clip into it a little bit. Don't go too far. Don't go up to that seam because then you'd cut through it. But that allows it to spread and open Actually, I didn't do it quite enough. Okay. I started before the corner and I went beyond the corner. So I'm going to come here, coming about a 1/2 inch away. That's where I'm going to stick my pin. That's where I'll put the needle in and lift up my presser foot and pivot and turn it. Okay, and that's what you do all the way around. When I get back to the beginning, I'll show you how I put that together. Okay, we're back to where we started. So what I do is I cut it about 1.5 inches past where that is. Then I'm going to use my ripper if need be. To take the seam out. Pull from one side, turn over. Pull from the other side. That's far enough. Fold this back. Line that up, and I'm going to cut the excess cording right where this one stops. That way they'll line up perfectly. Now what you do, unpin where you started, take this piece, fold it back a little bit. I usually kind of stick a pin in it just to help it stay there while I'm getting it all lined up. Line up that. Take my pin out. Fold it over and get that nice and tight. And put a pin in it so it stays. Put the pin the wrong way. That's alright. Now finish pinning. I always put my pins in so that they're easy to pull out as I'm stitching. Put one here. Now I can take that one out. And I start here with my stitching all the way around. So that's next. Okay, as I said, I always like to start at the bottom. Take this pin out. Go back first, the lock, and then forward. And again, I'm just trying to stitch right on top of where I had stitched before when I had made the cording. Alright, on the back fabrics, remember we cut 2. And they are 27 inches by 18 inches. So What I want to do now is on this one end that's going to be the envelope part. I want to turn it in a 1/2 inch. We allowed 1 inch for this. Plus I cut these whole things another inch wider, just 36 instead of 35 like we had talked about. And then I'm going to turn it in again. This is very ravelly fabric. I could have zigzagged this edge and then just turned it in once, but it is so ravelly that this will look a lot neater. Not that you're going to be taking the pillows, you know, in and out. Alright, now I'm going to run stitch these right here, about, since this is probably 5/8, I'll probably stitch it at a 1/2 inch. So let me do that and I'll come back. Okay, those are stitched. And now we want to put right sides together. And this is what I do. I just kind of line it up here. And I'm going to pin this time this direction, because when I go to stitch it, I'm going to flip it over on this back side, and I can see exactly where I stitched before, and I will stitch in the ditch. I will stitch right on that line again. And by pinning the pins this way, I won't have to take them out. I'll just have to be careful when I am sewing to make sure my needle doesn't hit a pin. Okey-dokey. Again, I will sew it from this side. And you turn it, and here you have your Euro sham. And you can stuff it. Ta-da. 2 down, 3 to go.